news and events COVID-19 on June 24 and June 25, 2020. Note, this is a collaborative video made between Travel for All Fanpage and Knowledge of Coronavirus channel. Please respectfully welcome everyone. The following is the remarkable news most on June 24 and June 25 as follows. 1. U.S. News. Up to now, the U.S. recorded 2,441,439 people infected with COVID-19, an increase of 37,271 cases in the past 24 hours. The number of deaths due to COVID-19 in the U.S. are now 124,247, an increase of 774 cases in the past 24 hours. In the U.S., Texas reports the number of daily reported cases that have exceeded 5,000 cases for the first time. State officials warn that the COVID-19 pandemic is very serious and spreading rapidly, requiring people to minimize outdoor activities. The number of cases of COVID-19 in Texas increased rapidly this June. The rate of infection is currently at 9%, compared to 4.5% in the previous month. By the end of June 23, the state had 120,370 people with COVID-19, of which 2,220 had died. U.S. National Security Guards protect monuments in Washington. On June 24, about 400 soldiers from the National Guard in Washington were deployed in a state of readiness to assist law enforcement officials in protecting some of their personal statues. Historical objects. This decision was made at the request of the U.S. Department of the Interior. Earlier, on June 23, President Trump issued a tough warning to protesters in Washington with a statement that they would use force if protesters tried to establish an autonomous region without a scene. In this city, he threatened to punish up to 10 years of anarchist-type behavior who damaged buildings that were national assets during a wave of anti-racist protests. It is known that President Trump made the statement a day after police were forced to use tear gas to disperse crowds of protesters seeking to oust the late U.S. President Andrew Jackson in a park next to the White House. Mr. Jackson was President of the United States during 1829-1837. Protesters sought to destroy the monument to protest the harsh policies of Native Americans under the president. 2. Update COVID-19 worldwide. According to Worldometers, as of 6 a.m. on 25/6 Asian time, the world has more than 9.5 million cases of acute respiratory infections COVID-19, of which the number of deaths has reached more than 480,000. Shift. The epidemic is still complicated in the Americas and some Asian countries. Up to now, the U.S. recorded 2,441,439 people infected with COVID-19, an increase of 37,271 cases in the past 24 hours, an increase similar to the peak period in Stage 1 in April. 5. The number of deaths due to COVID-19 in the U.S. are now 124,247, an increase of 774 cases in the past 24 hours. Currently, the number of deaths due to COVID-19 in Latin America has exceeded 100,000. 3. Brazil news. Besides the Brazilian epidemics, 53,874 cases, and Mexico, 23,377, Chile is also the country that is witnessing a rapid increase. Brazil appears to be in the second wave of the COVID-19 epidemic, with 40,995 new cases recorded in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of infected people to 1,192,474. This is the second highest number of cases since the outbreak, after 55,209 cases were recorded on June 19. 4. Mexico news. In the past 24 hours, Mexico also set a new record when it recorded 6,288 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of infected people to 191,410. 5. India news. In Asia, India set a new record by recording an additional 16,870 cases and 424 deaths. Currently, the total number of infections in India has reached 472,985, with 14,907 deaths. 6. China news. Meanwhile, authorities in Beijing, China, said a new outbreak of the COVID-19 epidemic, affecting 256 people in the capital since early June, is now under control but is still worried. Concerned about the risk of spreading in the community. 7. Japan news. In Japan, the Tokyo city government said there were 56 new cases on June 24. This was the second consecutive day Tokyo recorded the number of new cases per day in excess of 50 cases in a day from the date of May 5. Japan opposes China to name the seabed area in the East China Sea. Speaking at a recent news conference, Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide said, "There are a number of names, based on Beijing's unilateral assertion regarding the Senkaku Islands. The surrounding sea does not change the fact that Senkaku is an inherent territory of our country." Since then, it was not uncommon that on June 25, Japan protested against China naming the seabed in the East China Sea, including the area related to the disputed Senkaku Islands currently controlled by Tokyo. But Beijing also claimed it and called it Diaoyu. The drama happened when earlier on June 23, China's Ministry of Natural Resources released a list of names for 50 seabed areas in the East China Sea, including 3 areas with islands. Diaoyu Senkaku. 8. South Africa news. South Africa recorded a new record over the past 24 hours, with 5,688 cases, including 103 deaths, bringing the total number of people infected and deaths from COVID-19 to 111,796 and 2,205 respectively. 9. Israel news. In Israel, the Ministry of Health announced it had recorded an additional 532 cases, the highest number of cases per day since April 22, bringing the total number to 22,044, including 308 deaths. 10. Iraq news. Meanwhile, Iraq on June 24 recorded the number of new COVID-19 cases soaring to 2,200, the highest since the outbreak, bringing the total number of infected people to 36,702, including 1,330 deaths, an increase of 79 cases in the last 24 hours. 10. Swedish news. Sweden still criticizes the world against the crazy epidemic. Anders Tegnell, a Swedish epidemiologist, said he was opposed to restrictions on movement because of the harmful side effects they often cause, according to the South China Morning Post. Mr. Tegnell admitted to underestimating the deadly danger of coronavirus in the early stages. However, he refused to give up his strategy. He said that restricting global mobility could create other problems, including domestic violence, loneliness and mass unemployment. Anders Tegnell also advises against using masks and says there is little scientific evidence to suggest that mask use is effective. He also said the closure of schools was an unnecessary response during the pandemic. Sweden does not close schools, shops and restaurants. People are encouraged to adhere to the rules of social distance, but Mr. Tegnell's strategy suggests that Swedes will voluntarily change their behavior without the need for a law. Perhaps Sweden is the only country where theaters are still open, cafes are still crowded among translators, while European countries apply blockades, asking people to stay home because of COVID-19. Sweden still gives allowed movie theaters, gyms and pubs to function normally. However, Sweden is now one of the countries with the highest COVID-19 mortality rates in the world. Compared to the United States, Sweden has a higher death toll per 100,000 people, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. Surveys show that Swedes have begun to lose confidence in their country's anti-epidemic. Our newsletter is now over. Thank you for always watching and supporting our videos. Knowledge of coronavirus, channel and travel for all fanpage respectfully, and see you in the next video.